It was a cold, moonless night in the small town of Hawthorne. The streets were quiet, the usual hum of life stilled by a creeping sense of unease that had blanketed the area for weeks. The wind howled through the trees, their bare branches swaying like skeletal arms reaching for the heavens. The only sound breaking the silence was the occasional rustling of fallen leaves as they scurried across the pavement. But something else was in the air tonight, something darker, more sinister. For the past month, Hawthorne had been plagued by a series of gruesome murders. Each crime scene was more horrifying than the last, leaving the town in a state of constant fear. The police were baffled. There were no signs of struggle, no fingerprints, no clues. It was as if the killer had simply vanished into thin air after each crime, leaving behind only the lifeless bodies of his victims and an overwhelming sense of dread. The killer had earned a chilling nickname, the Silent Shadow. No one knew his identity and no one had seen him. But one thing was certain. He was always there, lurking just out of sight, always one step ahead of the law. Part 2. The First Murder. The first victim had been a young woman named Emily, who had lived alone in a small cottage on the outskirts of town. She was last seen walking to the market early one morning. Her neighbors had noticed nothing unusual, but when her body was discovered days later in her own home, it was a scene from a nightmare. Her throat had been slit cleanly, and there were no signs of a struggle. The most chilling part, however, was the strange symbol carved into her chest. A symbol that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. The police found no leads, no witnesses, no reason why Emily had been chosen. The second murder came just a week later. A local teacher named Mr. Hamilton was found dead in his classroom after hours, the same eerie symbol carved into his chest. It seemed that the killer was growing bolder, leaving his mark in plain sight. The town began to panic, and rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a curse, others whispered of a ghostly figure stalking the streets at night, seeking vengeance. Part 3. The Fear Grows. Detective Sarah Lawson had been assigned to the case after the second murder. She had seen her fair share of horrors in her career, but something about these killings gnawed at her. There was an almost ritualistic quality to them, something methodical and deliberate in the way the killer operated. Yet there were no connections between the victims, no apparent motive. Sarah spent long hours in the local police station, going over the details again and again, searching for any clue that might lead her to the killer. But every lead turned out to be a dead end. The town had become a ghost town, the streets empty at night as everyone locked themselves in their homes, hoping the killer would overlook them. But Sarah wasn't about to give up. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something crucial. The victims, the symbols, the eerie sense of inevitability surrounding each crime. It all felt connected in ways she couldn't yet understand. One evening, as Sarah sat in her office, going through the case files once more, there was a knock at the door. "Detective Lawson?" a voice called from the doorway. Sarah looked up, startled. Standing in the doorway was a young woman, no older than 25. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. She had a nervous energy about her, and her hands trembled slightly as she held a file in her arms. I need to talk to you," the woman said, her voice shaky. "I think I know who the killer is." Part 4. The Mysterious Visitor. The woman introduced herself as Anna. She was a former resident of Hawthorne who had left the town years ago to attend college. She had returned recently to visit her family, only to be swept into the terror that had gripped the town. "I don't know if this will help," Anna began, "but I've been having these dreams. Nightmares, really. They're so vivid, so real. In them, I see the killer, his face, his hands, everything. But every time I try to remember details, it's like my mind pushes them away, like I'm not supposed to know." Anna handed Sarah the file she had been clutching. It was filled with photographs, notes, and sketches that Anna had drawn based on her dreams. Sarah flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing as she examined the images. The sketches were haunting, depicting the same symbol that had been found on the victims' bodies, as well as eerie images of a tall, shadowy figure standing in the distance. "I don't know what this means," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I feel like I'm being drawn into something, like I'm supposed to remember something. I just don't know what." Sarah studied the file carefully, feeling a chill creep down her spine. Something in Anna's words resonated with her, but she couldn't yet make sense of it.